Hey, welcome everybody to Bongversations episode number 36. That's number nine on
Uh,
the 22nd of June. That's 622 or 226, whichever way you like to say it. We've got the amazing Dave J. Who's going to come and blow your minds again for the second time in the 7 days.
yeah,
We're
yeah, we
doing
just
well.
did
We're doing
last
well.
week. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great show, Dave, and it's already up to nearly 500 of solid listeners that have gone through and listened to the thing. Fantastic.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So I was looking at today's date. You have 622, which of course is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's an input output number. That's interesting to me because this we're going to talk about tonight, the 36, which is the 9. So the 369. The next thing that has to happen is once you build that tower, the 1 through 9, the tower, the 10 is now then the input output. Do you input it or do you output it? Do you get rid of it? So then that's really the choice that's being made. So with the 36, the first thing is if you look at it in computing, and we've talked about computing in the past as being the best way to look at how ideas are spread through
Yes.
so-called populations. So then if you look at base 36 code, now that base 36 code is going to be used because it's going to use up all your letters A through Z and the 0 through 9, and it's also used for URL shortening. So if you make a URL short, it uses base 36. It's good for unique identifiers, things like that. It's good for data obfuscation. So think about this in the function of news and stories, because base 36 is using all the numbers and all the letters of the
Yep.
so-called English and everything else that uses that similar alphabet. So then this is what that system's good at. So then if you have a base logic and it's laid out in what's called uh, ladder logic, meaning that the mind steps from one to the other, then you have what's called file naming or analytics, and what's even called like cryptography, which is the what you would see as occult symbols, meaning that there are certain symbols that you say, okay, that swastika means this X, Y, or Z, or that
Yep.
Masonic G and square and compass means this and that. So then you have this symbology and also hidden meaning that has a lot bigger definition to the simple presentation that's given to you. So then the 36, which is really just the 3 and the 6, which is the ring, and the present 6, the cube itself. And the cube, as you know, it goes into the idea of Mecca. It goes into the idea of the cross unfolded. Uh, any type of fixation on a containment on a cube is the Jews wear the little cube on their head, on their forehead. Uh,
Yep.
they're fixating on an idea because within that cube is housed what we've talked about before, the Zion. And in this case, we're talking about 3 plus 6 equals 9, or the 369. And of course, that then the 9 is the idol. And the idol
Yep.
is the 9. Remember, I told you before, if you take the 9 as if you can imagine a 9 being drawn and you turn it
Yep.
to the left, it looks like it's a drop coming out of a syringe. All
Yes.
right. What's
Yes.
interesting? Yeah, what's interesting about that is that the 3 6s, or 666, let's say, in English is 666, and in simple gematria, it's 111. Now, just like with that Indian air hoax, where the passenger, the one who was ejected, which is which
Yeah,
is
yeah. 11A. Seat 11A.
yeah, so which
Yep.
is 111. And
Yep.
what's interesting about that, and I think I've told you this before, but if you can imagine 3 1s in a row and zoom in your mind at the top, it's going to look like three sevens because of the way that the one is marked to
Yep.
most minds. So in simple gematria with the 111, guess what else? So I told you the 9 looks like the injection. Well, guess what? 111 also equals vaccination.
Ha
It
ha ha.
also,
There you go.
yeah, yeah, it also equals computer. We're
Well,
talking about,
that's fantastic.
yeah, we're talking about the base 36. So it equals injection, it equals computer, it equals the 9, which is the sum of the 3 and the 6. It also equals the image of Satan, say 10. Remember we talked about this
Yeah,
is
one
the
O, one
input.
plus O plus one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, what about
Yeah.
also? I thought
Yeah.
the word Zion
Uh-huh.
to me is is the lightning bolt with the 10 in between and another lightning bolt and another angle.
Yeah.
As a symbol as well, and ion being the same thing as a 10 with the Z or a light. Well, I always look at it as
Yeah.
a flash or a lightning bolt. Yeah,
Absolutely. And then plus the lightning bolt too with the little Z pattern, it's really just two sevens put together, mirrored opposite. If you
exactly.
see,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, it's you. You've
yeah,
told me that a while ago. That's very good.
yeah, yeah. So that's kind of like the old what's his nuts from Harry Potter with his scar on his forehead is a Z or two
And
sevens.
David Bowie,
Yeah, David
man who
Bowie.
fell to
Yeah.
Earth, DB
Mm-hmm.
42, blah 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 blah, all that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. So then you have the two sevens, which is 14. And oh, speaking of 14, if you go back to the 1984 Apple computer commercial, where they had it was a 1984-ish type of commercial, and they had this Russian lady kind of bouncing on in with a big hammer, and she throws it through the screen. The plebes that come out at the beginning of that video come out of a single hole or a chute, and it's labeled 14. Now,
Ha
and
ha.
yeah, I've told you this before. The 14, the 1 plus the 4 is the 5, or the senses. So they're all
Yep.
coming out of this fallen senses into the room, and the girl in the red that comes running and bouncing throws the
Very
hammer.
important color.
Yeah,
Very important
yeah,
color. Yeah.
throws the hammer into the screen, and it breaks. And so, and then there's the tagline is how 1984 is not going to be like 1984. However, it's
Interesting.
kind of, yeah, yeah, and so I'll put that into the video form of this show, kind of
Mm.
in the background. You'll see it. I just remembered that it's the 1984 Apple commercial. So
It's
then,
interesting. So it's very Thor-like as well, which is another lightning
mm-hmm,
bolt symbol. Yeah, with Thor the hammer, a
mm-hmm,
female version with a red. Yeah, I
yep,
get it. Mm.
yep. So then, and also a few more things that are 111 and 666, because English is 666. What if something's in English gematria is 666? In simple, which I like to go to, is just because you reduce it down, is 111, or the three I. Anyway, the
Yeah.
same as Santa Claus. You could have guessed that.
Yeah.
And also here we were talking earlier, witchcraft is 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 the same gematria,
Interesting.
same number. And also here's one that's very interesting too, and it will explain why you have this whole kind of white power and this still fascination with the Nazi idea, is that Deutschland also equals that.
111.
And that, yeah, and that, yes, and that's because that's the Ashkenazi Jew stronghold. That's where if it Ashkenazi
Yeah.
Nazis are the Jews. They're all the same storytellers. It's all the same goof troop. So then that's why all those same characters. And in fact, I did a video on several of the characters from the so-called Nazi regime wound up being in the founding government of the so-called New Israel when
Oh
it was
yes. Yep.
founded. Yeah, they were
Yep.
the same people. It's like they didn't even
Yep.
change their look. And so I was like, it's like, do you not see? It's like, uh, so what I did was this, Rick. I'm sure a lot of people did this too, but what I looked at the KJV Bible, and I
Yep.
looked at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and how many times it was used in the entire Old and New Testament. Now for
Yep.
each one of those, and what I found was, just to kind of reduce this down, is for, let's say, example 1, I put every usage of 1. It didn't matter if it was just the first part of the word or by itself, because they all represent, even if one might be more veiled than the other, a related idea or purpose. All right. So then let's say for one, it was listed 1,769 times, which reduces to 23 or five, or the idea of
Senses,
senses. One.
senses, yeah.
All right. So I did that for all the numbers all the way down to, let's say, 10. And just to explain 10, I had to, uh, and this is where the idea of how the 10 ten in what you're thinking of its usage is a number, and tent tent. The reason why tent is also relevant is it's the I'll be Wayne Carver for a minute. It's not a tent, it's this wonderful thing, so it's this bigger, it's this bigger idea. So that the tent is still the 10 because it's the input output just expanded into creation, you see. So then for example, 10 is used 498 times, which finally reduces down to 21, then to 3, which of course is a G7 number. So I added all these up, all 10 in a row at the reduction, and guess what? It equals 54, which is 9,
Number 9.
or
Number 9.
idle. So then the numbers, or the tower. Think of a tower in the KJV Bible, which is the script of this place, whether people like it or not. That's what they're using.
Yep.
You place that tower, which is simply 1 through 10. And you can put it into Bible Gateway or any one of these uh, 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 internet sites that have the online version, and it's going to give you the same numbers. So it's just what's in the script. And then if you add that up, that equals 9. But then guess what? The numbers that are missing in those 10 digits, the 1, the 2, and the 8 are not in it, because it's 5, 6, 7, 7, 9, 3, 4, 7, 3, 3. The 1, the 2, and the 8 are missing.
And there's adds up to 11.
And that's
by
11.
coincidence.
So that's
Yep.
your 911. Do you see how the 911 is in that same?
Fantastic.
Yeah. So then that 911's in the code. So then that's the idol. That's also it's kind of like beyond the coincidence.
Oh, no. No.
Yeah. Oh, also speaking of Mac and kind of this idea of infection, in 1998 there was a Macintosh virus called 7 Dust, and its original name was 666. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
There
And
you
then
go.
guess what? So it went from 666 to 7 Dust. 7 Dust. So the idea of sprinkling false ideas around. Because
Interesting. Yeah.
what it did was it deleted all the application files on your system. So it says, because all those viruses are all engineered as well to cause
Very
issues.
much so.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
much so, for sure. Yeah.
You own both sides of the business. You make them and you catch them. You own both
Yeah.
sides of it. So it's so. Uh-huh.
McAfee, what's his name? McAfee or whatever his name. He worked for NASA
Uh-huh.
and the antivirus, McAfee
Oh yeah.
antivirus, and they reckon he was just creating his own issues and offering the solution.
Right.
The Hegelian dialect. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's all the same thing. So then what and here's where this gets into like the Phoenicians, because that's where you get the 3 looking like the 7 and the G. So, but the Phoenicians are what you would know as the modern day Frankists and
Yeah.
Sabbateans. They
Yep.
they are that Revelation 2 and 3 9 Jew, the one that claim they are Jew but are not. So then these characters, they claim within their lore, which is in specifically their Talmud titled Sanhedrin 97b. It
Yeah.
mentions that there are fewer than 36 righteous people in the world who create the divine presence, and that's and
36.
yeah, and yeah, 36. So how to think about, but that's at all times continually, meaning that 36, the spirit within that 36 moves through the population over time, unending, meaning that one of those spirits might leave one body and go into the next, and then that causes that person's almost overnight or instant success. Do you
Wow.
see?
Mm.
Now, here's what's interesting is that this is this is the switch or the opposite of what's called the mind of Christ, which is freely given, which is on there is no limit. This, however, is the speaking of the what controls this world or this realm. So that is why you have these certain powers or so-called families or names or who are running because they are this so-called 36.
The
And it's
same.
just
It's the
yeah,
same entity inside
yeah,
them. Yeah.
it's the same entity. And then because this
Yeah.
goes back to the Babylonian star catalogs, this goes back to the Egyptian Book of Nut, which lists 36 deacons. Uh, uh, within the star chart. This goes back to Agrippa's three book of occult philosophy. All of this is spoken about in just different ways, but it's all
Yeah.
the same thing. It's all spoken. It's all the same thing at the end. By the end, so here's just to get to another little interesting point. When I was doing that number study, is zero. Now, what about zero? So I looked at zero. No bueno. But I looked in at zero. Zero. And here's where it showed me 1 Samuel 9:1, which is 9/11 code kind of hidden in there.
Yep.
But then guess what? Zero. Who is zero? But I'll go to the beginning. It says, now there was a man of Benjamin whose name is Kish, the son of
Ish.
Abiel, the son of Zeor. So Zeor. Well, let's forget Zeor for now. Let's
ZOR.
go.
Yes.
Let's
So
go.
it's
Yeah,
like
let's go up
zero.
to the top. Yeah, let's go up to the top. It's Benjamin, whose name was Kish. Now, who's Kish? Kish just so happens to be the father of the first so-called king of Israel, Saul. Why is that interesting? Is because Saul represents bringing the kingdom together. So,
Wow.
and then guess what? You have this whole idea going on yesterday, 621, which is 6-3, which is the reverse of 3-6, where they had the hoax that the US bombed three places, 3G7 in Iran, which is this story being told. Because
Mm,
Saul
mm.
is the Trump character, because he's trying to bring one kingdom together. Because if
So
you
it's another
recall,
archetype,
yeah,
a blatant
yeah,
archetype
yeah.
in front of you in the media. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I was like, I could see that story a mile away, and so and because I looked at the 6-3, bang, 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 and then there you. So it's so 3-6 in the reflection is 6-3.
Yeah.
It's all
It's
and
also
then
the circle
yeah.
and the shape of the sun, the 3360, which is
Mm-hmm.
36 as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you have so it's a cycle. So you have the Saul character who's meant to build a kingdom. You also have the Trump character who was being spoken months ago about the king saying, "Oh, he wouldn't mind being having the U.S. back as a part of the kingdom XYZ." So
Yeah.
they were building this narrative of this one world coming back together, and that's the whole story of the Saul character bringing all of the so-called kingdoms back together. That's
Interesting.
that's that's the tie-in. So that's
Yeah.
where it's interesting that you have to. And so you go to 1 Samuel 9:1, which has nothing to do with what I just talked about. But then if
Yeah.
you go to the second person mentioned and then to who their offspring was, then you get the actual point. So you that's why it's important to pay attention to the details, even the zero, because
Yeah, for sure.
the zero led us to that little bit. Now, another way we've talked about the Aleister Crowley character before, but that character is tied in, of course, with the 666, which is the three sixes, through through books and whatnot, whether it be the Book of the Law or Book of Thoth or Book 4, or the one where Moonchild, where the where he has that one saying. Knowledge is the enemy of truth, or XYZ, one or the other, and
Mm-hmm.
that gets spread around, but and people will change it a little bit, but all that comes from a Crowley book, Moonchild. And then he also did the Book of Lies and 777. and other
777, yeah, and
yeah,
credit, yep, and, yep,
yeah,
yep, and
a-
yep.
and other Kabbalistic, XYZs. He also did. He also did some work on the Lesser Key of Solomon, which of course deals with the 72 spirits that you can control through sigils. And I
Which
told
is
you,
the nine. It's the
yeah,
number nine again.
yeah,
So
yeah,
just shout out.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I told you that sigils are nothing more than electrical schematics. That if you know the pattern, uh, you can control that um, wavelength or that light,
Yeah.
because all of this stuff is real. Just so you know. So if you get into screwing around with this stuff, it's real. So if you don't Christ, don't do it.
Oh yeah, yeah. And an
Uh,
awful lot of people did. An awful lot
yeah.
of people did. That's for sure.
And then that's where I told you, when you go into that place, that tent, that thing that we talked about earlier, most don't get past the tent or the stained glass, because it actually looks like, when you interact with it outside of this physical space, when you leave to the spiritual space, it looks like a stained glass window. You've got to go through it, and you go through it. In fact, there's a heart song speaking about dreams. I want to say was the song where they talk about going through a stained glass window without a cut.
Mm.
That's the same experience of leaving. It's also the same if you've seen the Masonic art of the guy lifting the corner of the painting, and he's looking under the scenery.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
It's the same thing. But what I'm saying is that that's for real. That you can do that. However, most get scared at the stained glass, because they start to reflect too much, and they over it gets too bright, and they get scared, and then they fall back, and then they never leave the tent. That is why most will just fall into addiction, because they caught a glimpse of something, but they can't get back to it, because they're trying to do it themselves
Yep.
versus letting their Lord Jesus Christ do it. Then they wouldn't. So that's why people fall into addiction, because they're chasing a dinosaur. You know, they
Uh,
saw the land of milk and honey that one time, that glimpse. They want to get back there, but they can't, because they saw too much.
yeah.
But they saw what they weren't supposed to. you know and that's how they fall into this idea that they have to keep looking.
The
The
false
same,
light.
yeah, the same with alcoholics who are chasing a specific feeling of escape, because to be with themselves would be too much. It's
Yeah.
that same addiction, really.
Yeah.
So then, if you also interesting, I know we talked about the book of Samuel, because that's 1 Samuel 9:1 is where Saul and all that. But then if you also go to 1 Samuel, that's also in 1 Samuel 2:8. It talks about the pillars of the earth. So now you're again talking about the pillars idea.
Yeah.
So now so everything is being held up. So if you just follow these different stories we're talking about into the code, you'll see that it's right there being told to you, all of it. Oh, and
Mm.
also the what else was I going to tell you about there was something that jumped in my head. The roulette wheel also is 0 to 36 places. So
Yes.
then, yeah, so then that's also the idea.
Red and black. Red and
Yeah,
black. Red and
yeah,
black.
yeah, of the gamble. You know,
Yep.
yeah, for sure.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
Very
man.
interesting. Different. It's like it's a next level stuff when you're going to this, because to do that work that you've done, to go
Mm.
through the KJV and add all those things up and subtract them, and then do that. There's a lot of work involved here. So well done, man.
Oh yeah. So then, and also, Rick. So if you also look at the uh, what's hidden. Um, in numbers is 36. Let's say if you take the 36 spirit spoken about, let's with the Solomon ideas, and there's a certain name, Amen,
Yeah.
Amenadiel. So there, and that character actually talks about a certain power or a light, and so it's deals with what's known as the Emperor of the West, or the idea of a transition or balance. Now
Yeah.
that right there is, you can see that that's being shown to you in the current story, because it's the idea of taking something out of balance or casting judgment, because one of the abilities of that particular demon is to cast judgment or to offer secret knowledge. And so then that's the idea of war and so-called hidden warfare, and then guess what, secret messages and back channels. You'll hear they'll add those details into the story that's given the audience, but these are the actual powers of this so-called demon or angle of fallen light, because think of it as just being reflected at angles. So the 36th,
Which is the
yeah,
seven.
yeah,
An
yeah,
angle is a seven as
yeah,
well. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. You have right angles, obtuse angles, acute angles, and then yeah, so it's just a version of the same thing. It's just the seven sevens. So then really the seven, it's like the hook. And then,
Yep.
so if your light gets shot, it's going to just be like, pong. It's going to
Yep.
boing. And then, so depending on the reflection point, it's coming back at you at a different place. So while, yeah, while the reflection might seem different, a different angle, the details might be changed, because a story is a different angle. So if you get the story the next morning, it's like, now we have a news update. That just means that they're giving you the same story at a different angle. So you
Right.
haven't
Gotcha.
gone anywhere. You're still looking at the same corner. You're just like a kid in the corner, man, with a dunce cap on, right? You're and they just keep feeding you this snow cone, you know.
Mm,
Oh, and
mm,
and
mm.
it's also the occult use of this 36, because remember it's tied in with the so-called core of knowing people. But in occult use, it's used in magic for guidance and order. So the order part would be the order out of chaos part, meaning
Yep.
offering you this chaotic condition and saying, don't worry about it, don't sweat it, we got this new order, which none of it actually matters. But what it does is it covers for moving people from place A to place B. They're like, why are these people coming here? Well, hey, because they're escaping this situation here, so now they're going to settle here. All that then gets done under the guise of this other story, and it's nothing more than black magic or ceremonial magic. The reason it's black is because they're offering you death and mayhem and blood and tears and fire, instead of telling you there's people are just moving from this shithole to another place.
It covers their story.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because
Yeah.
because just by fact, water tables change, things change, so population just has to move. And you do that by going to where the old Kinnison joke, you go to where the food is, you know?
Yeah.
So that's
Exactly.
that's what you do, go to where the food is. you know oh my
Good stuff,
goodness.
man.
Yeah, so that's,
Well, it's really pertinent. It's really
yeah,
pertinent to the 36 for today's news. If you're looking at the news cycle, God help you if you do. But this is what you're going to see, and more explain though that is just another, a three going into the Saul
3G7,
legend with,
yeah.
yeah, and you've got the new Saul, which is Donald Trump,
Yeah,
the Orange Man,
yeah, Orange Man badge, yeah.
doing all the things that he's been told to do, and make and the news cycle reflects this for you to stare at and get your angles of sorrow, basically, and angles of lies put into you for sure.
Well, you remember we talked about the krypton gas before. krypton gas. It's used in semiconductor manufacturing as well
Yes.
to create certain layers for semiconductor or for read-write heads. However, 36, or it's also the atomic number, so-called, is also 36. And
Wow,
krypton,
far out.
yep,
There's a lot of
yeah,
36s involved
yeah,
with
yeah.
the hidden.
Yeah, and well, I'm glad you said that because its name is Krypton or Kryptos, which means the hidden one.
Ha!
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That was a complete accident. I just have to
yeah.
say that. I didn't know anything. I just said off the top of my head. Best way to say things, sometimes it just come out and it actually reflects and turns out to be a truth.
Oh yeah, yeah. So then that particular gas because you have what's called lighter than air gas, which are really helium, neon, nitrogen, oxygen,
Yep.
krypton, and xenon.
Uh,
Now, with let's say you have those type, those then exist in what's called the light realm, or where you see the stars in the sky. So then, if you were going to create as above, so below, if you're going to create a network system, which a computer system is, really it's a computer system is nothing more than a star system in a form that you can interact with. So think of it that way. So then if above these gases are prevalent in the light realm because that's where they exist, then you
yep.
have to use those same gases to create hardware that can then be used in computers to create what we're doing right now, because what we're doing right now is a cyberspace. All right.
Yeah.
So you see, it's the same thing. So then, therefore, the same elements or gas in process had to be used in order to create it. As above, so below. That's why these same
Fantastic.
gases are used in actual semiconductor manufacturing.
Which
And
you know about. Which
I
you
sure
know
do.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, I changed a lot of these bottles when they move out. Quite expensive, several. A lot of them just small bottles, but very expensive too for that stuff.
I bet they are.
Yeah,
I
and
bet they
and
are. Yeah.
but here's the thing: there's no budget to that stuff because that stuff has to be made. Because
Yeah.
in order to move the population forward, because this place is not a just a freewheeling, could go this way, could go that way. It's all a controlled narrative. So the population is being brought up to a speed on schedule. Therefore, companies are made to produce items, and they're given budgets to create these items, and they're not going to fail because there's a backup, and there's a backup to, and there's a backup to it. They're
Yeah.
going to create these chips. They're going to create these phones. They're going to create these X, Y's, and Z's because it has to happen in order to move the so-called man and woman into the digital age and
Hmm.
into the what some people would call transhuman, but it's really just more of a man or a woman accepting more and more computer aid or
Oh
aided
yeah.
devices in their life, and then just
And you got your
simply taking a
and your
back seat to it. Yeah,
AI, which is 19, which turns into the 10 as well, which is
yeah,
your the
false
most one of
IO.
the most the false, which is the
Yeah.
biggest thing that's going on at the moment with you're seeing people using it, loving it. It's an incredible tool. It's just all of a sudden in the last 3 years really taken control of uh, narratives and conversation
Oh,
and usage for sure.
and what's interesting is I was thinking
Cheers, Rick.
about
This is the
kind of
idea of the
also the
quarter
character of
note
the Trump
and
character and
that
how
the
he's
half
playing
note.
the
And if you
Napoleon
turn that, it
character,
looks
really.
like a loaded
And
syringe
Oh
then
yeah.
needle
I thought,
ready
oh,
for
Napoleon had just come out
insertion
in
into the
2023,
body.
not
And
Napoleon
thus
Wilson,
that becomes
The
the
Napoleon
movie.
light
the
of
movie.
The movie. Yeah.
its
That
star.
was directed by what's his name, Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott, yep.
Yeah.
And stars the Joker or Joaquin
Mm-hmm.
Phoenix. Yep,
Yeah,
yep,
yeah,
yep.
yeah. And then also then what's his, he goes back to Prometheus, right?
Oh yes, yeah,
Ridley Scott,
absolutely.
he goes back to Prometheus.
Alien,
Yeah,
Terminator. Not
and then
Terminator. The Gladiator. He's
and,
all over the place.
and then in 2014 he did one called Exodus, which is leaving Gods and Kings, and then that to me
Oh yes.
shows that goes into the idea of the no kings nonsense. that's been
which
going on
just
the
was in
last
the
few
news in the
weeks.
moment. Back in
Yeah,
the cycle, yeah, back in the
yeah.
cycle of news, yeah, no
Hmm.
kings. Yep.
And you also, and this is one I noticed, you had this idea of commandments coming back into vogue. However, at some point, there's going to be a switcheroo, and they're going to introduce 7 laws as a as a mediation to the standard biblical script, and the 7 are nothing more than you guessed it, what's called Noahide laws.
Yes.
Yeah, and so
Well, can you explain? Can you explain? Go into that a little bit because
mhm.
that's that yeah. Sorry.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, it goes into seven commandments that the sons of Noah were supposed to have been given, which was don't worship idols, do
False
not
idols.
curse, do not curse God, do not commit murder, do not commit adultery or be sexual immoral. That right there, people are going to say, well, who decides? Well, uh, they're going to decide. Sport, not to steal,
Yeah.
not to eat fish torn from or flesh torn from like a living animal. So and then to establish courts of justice. That's important. Justice is used because justice is the idea of ISIS.
Yeah.
So then, and so then that the whole cannibal idea is going to be interesting because it's the 6th law, so called. So 3, 6, there is no 9. So 3 is do not commit murder, and 6 is not to eat flesh torn from a living animal. So you have to notice that what's the hidden kind of uh, feature of that one. The hidden feature of that is communion.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. Do you see now what?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So
yeah,
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 100%. Yeah.
yeah.
Which is I am the eating the bread, which is
Right,
the
right,
flesh.
right.
Mm, 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 mm.
Yeah, because people confuse the physical, because these will be very physical laws, with the spiritual. Because this is not actually my frickin' arm, dummy. This means that if you can, this goes into the idea of essence, and we talked about if your fingerprint, every time you touch something, you leave yourself there. So if I touch each cookie that's baked into it, your essence is consumed. That's that consumption that's being talked about. Not
Right,
saying
yeah,
you're
because that's the
not.
bread.
Yeah,
Your tale of your grandmother making
right.
baking the bread
Mm-hmm.
and making the dough and leaving her essence into the bread.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm, yep.
Yep. So then that's what that and so that's really kind of that's where the 7, and then but they also kind of get tied into the Book of Jubilees and all this stuff that has nothing to do with anybody. It only has to do with these Ashkenazi types and the
Isn't
Babylonian.
Jubal is a very Masonic thing, isn't it? And Jubilee, so Jubal,
Yeah,
the Masons have a
it's very
big
close
thing
to
about Jubal.
Tubal. Tubal
You
came
say
very close to
Tubal
that.
Cain Jubal, yeah,
Yeah.
but it's just with the J on the turning in from the T, which is the hook. There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah. So then, yeah, it's but just when you see that happening, because that's already you'll see that they'll start to try to weasel this stuff in, and a few of those are going to get you. I guarantee you. You might get past 1 or 2 of them, but they're going to get you at some point
Yeah.
on them 7. You're not going to make it through them 7 too easily. Yeah. Oh,
Fantastic.
and then yeah, so then and also what was one of the other ones he did? He did Blade Runner.
Blade Runner, yeah, that was
Yeah.
his probably the biggest movie, I would say,
Oh, you know
and
what
that's
he's
very
got
much
coming out? Oh, go
AI.
ahead.
AI. Sorry,
Oh yeah.
it's another AI thing with the robots and the transformation of man into machine,
Yeah.
etc. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what he's got coming out is the Dog Stars, which
Oh,
is
that's
it,
serious.
yeah, exactly. Serious, yeah.
Interesting.
Are you
Interesting.
serious? Yeah, man. Yeah,
Exactly.
you see. So yeah, and it's another one of these post-apocalyptic nonsense things. So everything's
Yeah,
kind of like pushing you towards this. And he also did Gladiator 2, which
he
was
did. And so, and
which
Dog Star is Keanu Reeves' band that he has, a band called Dog Star.
yeah, he should and that's interesting, man. And because you know also that the what's his face was in Denzel Washington was in Gladiator 2, and
He,
Denzel
he was.
Washington was pretending to be a born again.
Was he?
Yeah,
He's
he was pretending to be. Like
yeah,
he moved all the way up to the front though. He's like, yeah, I'll be giving the sermon. They're like, no, no, you just kind of became you kind of things have to see if you know what you're talking about. No, 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 I'll go ahead and give the sermon. I'm good. And so he's
yeah,
one of those types that moves immediately to the front seat.
yeah,
And
yeah. And he
so
was also used as in a story about not to pay your tax because apparently he didn't pay his tax and they threatened him with jail. It was a big story, 20 years
yeah,
ago.
yeah, yeah,
And so there's a there. I always thought that's just scaring the public into making sure they pay the render unto Caesar what is Caesar's.
yeah,
And Denzel Washington was the face of that scam.
yeah. We talked about him just the other day, or the other. He was the Book of Eli too. So
Yes, exactly.
which
Yep.
turns out
Which
to
I haven't
be
seen yet. I haven't seen
which
yet. I've got to see that movie.
which turns out to be the KJV, which we've been talking about.
Mm,
So that so what was he doing in a Masonic film but protecting the script
yeah.
of the realm? This is because if you lose the script, you lose your place.
Yep.
You know, so that's why when these Masons do their little levels, well, you have degrees. You have 3 levels, and then you have degrees because levels go up and down. Degrees go out. Think about it as looking out and turning on the same eye level. So that's your
Yep.
degrees. So now, if you're doing degrees, in order to pass this down, because you're dealing with knuckleheads, so you simply just need to make sure that they remember lines 1 through 20. Just
Yep.
say these lines back 1 through 20. Don't change nothing. Don't improv. We don't need your creativity sport. Just read these lines, and then in 20 years or 40 years, it'll all be the same. Then the story gets told. Even if you're a knucklehead, the story still gets told properly because you just read certain lines. And then there are those behind the scenes to make sure to make any corrections. Do you see? So it's
Yep.
really
It's all
just
a big film. It's all a big
yeah.
film
Hmm.
script, isn't it? Yeah. And I just
Yeah.
picked up then that level, the word, is
Yeah.
basically L. It's a LE, which is L backwards, and then the V in between and the EL at the end. So there's a
Yeah.
double God. There's God with a V in between of it. So and Masonic the word level in Masonism is quite a major part of their uh, thing. Is the different levels they go to.
Oh yeah. Man, that's yeah, that's
It,
yeah, that's
it's a
that's just
symbol. It's like yeah. So level is again like the word civic. Civic is not a word. It's a symbol that if
mm-hmm.
you know what you're seeing, you can see. You got the 33
Right.
CC, the the II and the big V in between. It's a symbol, not a word.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah,
level's
yeah.
another one.
Yeah, yeah. So that's nice to actually put into like an AVS program and spin it. I like to spin things. Spin
Yeah.
paintings, spin letters. You spin it. You
Yeah.
first spin it 90 degrees, then 180, then
Yeah.
260, and then you bring it back, of course, and then you start to bring it off at the off angles, and then you
Yeah.
start to see different patterns form and different,
Yeah.
and it really creates the idea of what I'm telling you about before, the sigils, because sigils are nothing more than, and if you ever see a sigil, you'll see it looks like points and wires. Well,
Yeah.
that's energy going between all those points are numbered. So then what you're doing is if you take that tower that we talked about earlier, the one through the 10, which is the input output or the let's call it the node, and you just have a stack of those in your mind, that then the you're just acting as a switch. And that's why you deal with some people who can't get out of a knot or they're a figure eight, is because they have nothing out. They have no other towers in their idle, in their mind, in their idle mind. They have no towers
Yeah.
to go to. So they're thinking of something, and all they can do is you corner them, or you present them with something they have no answer to. They just default to their random tower, and it spits out whatever their main idea was, even if it's not related. It's just
Yeah.
something, because they've been trained, for the most part. Most have been trained, at least in the West, not so much in the East, but in the West they have been trained that their opinion matters, and it doesn't.
Oh yeah.
And it
Oh yeah.
doesn't.
Absolutely.
It
Yep.
makes no
It doesn't
difference.
matter.
It
That's
doesn't.
right.
It simply doesn't. And that's, not only is that the first lesson, but if you can remember that each morning, you'll get through the day a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah. And
You
so
will.
it
Yeah.
offends people when you say that to some people because they've got this hyper-inflated
Hmm.
thing of their ego inside them.
Oh
When you're
yeah.
suddenly told, well, it really doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
People
The
get
truth
offended.
doesn't care. Well, let them be offended.
Yeah. Well, you're the master of that, Dave.
Offense.
You,
Yeah. 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 I'm the
Jedi
master of
level,
offense. Yeah.
Jedi level offense for sure. And it's but you're trying to teach someone, and that's the way it has to be, unfortunately.
Well, yeah.
You don't learn
Well, the
anything
thing,
unless you're, you know, going through something and told that you to rebuild yourself. You need to know
little
that when you
sparring,
actually, yeah,
like wrestling with the angel idea.
mm,
Yeah. So, and it's also then that you have to punch yourself out, meaning that you cannot accept the truth while you still hold a lie inside, because you're holding that lie inside. You're not going to
yeah,
let it go. The truth cannot inhabit you while that's in there. So that's why it's called returning to God naked. And that's why people they think it's crazy when I say you go to your closet naked for 3 days. It's a spiritual nakedness, meaning that you go with your mind open. You
yeah,
don't know anything, and then guess what? Now you know everything, because you've been given everything. Because as Christ said, He gives you His mind, and that you will be brought into all knowledge, not little bit piecemeal, all knowledge, meaning that if you seek, you will find. That's how that
yeah,
works. That's why there's nothing hidden from you. And that's why also then once you can break down to the simple tower, because now in our mind, Rick, we can break down a thought to a single tower and deconstruct
yeah,
it 1 through 10. Because now you can
yeah,
isolate the two, isolate the three, isolate the four, and say, oh, that's the door. Let me look at the door. The door's false. I don't have to go further. And then you're done
yeah.
with it. You've saved all that time. You've saved
A
all
lot
that
more
concern
relaxing.
and
It's a lot
emotion.
more relaxing.
Yeah,
It's a lot
yeah,
more relaxing
right,
when you get this when you get the truth that
right.
as I said, you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free.
Sure, yeah, yeah. Oh, let's talk about a few more things if you don't mind.
Go for it. I know you can talk.
So,
You
yeah.
keep chatting away, man.
So the 666 also, in, of course, we've talked about this when we talked about the omen, is the idea of the birthmark, or at least on the 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 boy's or skull,
Harry
or
Potter.
what are they, no, the kid on Omen.
Oh, and the boy. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Remember
On
under
his.
his
Sorry.
hair?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
under
Yep.
his
Yep.
hair.
Yep. Yep.
Remember Gregory Peck had to find it?
Yep.
And and then you had the Omen remake. Did you ever see the 2006 remake with
No.
what's his name, Levi Schreiber?
Was he in it? Was he?
Yeah, Levy.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah,
Levy
yeah,
Shriver, yeah.
yeah. Him and Julius Stiles were in a couple of Jews, and a couple of Jews, Gews.
Yep.
They're all. We talked about this from the beginning. They're all brothers and sisters in fraternity, whether it be through schooling, job, or in the business. You don't get in the business unless you're at least at certain levels, unless you are in the club. That's just the way that works. So then
Oh,
you have,
he's definitely in the club. That actor.
oh yeah, for sure. And then you have a prequel that came out in 2024 called The First Omen. Now that deals with before the 76, or before the birth
Be-
idea, because
Of
remember
Damien.
Yeah,
before
before
Damien's birth.
Damien. Yeah,
Yeah,
because Damien was born of a jackal.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. You mean his mother? I mean his mother was born of a jackal. That was when he was in the scene with Gregory Peck, the father priest, and
The first movie was very good.
yeah, yeah.
Really good movie. For those of you who hadn't seen it, do yourself a favor. It's
So that'd be
a
the
great,
76 version, right?
yeah, 76. Yeah,
Because
yeah,
they
yeah,
might
yeah.
try to sell you the 2006 version. So make sure it's
No, I can't do.
the 76 version.
Yeah, I've got to see the originals all the time, because I always worry why they remake a movie when they didn't need to do it. The
Yeah.
first one was really good, and they're doing it with everything though, Dave. Everywhere I look, there's another remake of another. It's just it's beyond me why they keep doing it, but it's the way it is.
Yeah. So, and even on the 7 code, like Omen, the Omen 6 was released on June 25th. Not to be, too 7 code about it, but 2 plus 5 equals 7.
Well, if
Yeah.
you get a seven in there, you get a seven in
Yeah.
there.
You get it. Yeah.
Why
Take
not?
it. So there's also some that use 666 more kind of in the title itself, and those came out in the 2000s. You had 666 The Child, which was a movie about a a plane crash. So just kind of like the one that just kind of happened, where you have this survivor from the plane, this kid, and then
Yep.
of course they take him into their house, and he becomes an a-hole, like a possessed little demon. And so so you kind of know that story. Then you have 666 The Beast, which was a Chad Matthews joint. Then you had The Devil's Child. These are all kind of, so you have a lot more coming out recently with the 666 kind of idea.
Oh yeah. Well,
You
it's
also
a brand that sells for movies and
uh,
and culture.
well, you also have the Iron Maiden, their uh, little tour, or their tour movie of, for their the film. It was called Iron Maiden
Well,
Flight 666.
well, so I
Yeah,
haven't seen that, but there you
yeah.
go.
It's called, yeah. So
Yep.
check it out. It's on Iron Maiden Flight 666. Then you
Well,
have
in the
mhm.
late seventies, they promoted the 666 through the roof with that
Yeah.
Number of the Beast song. It was huge, huge, big thing.
Oh
Mm.
yeah. And the Phantom of the Opera too, which is a big time play. Most people won't notice that it also deals with the 666.
Yeah,
So, and its evil intentions, and that idea. The Phantom's evil actions, quote unquote.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Huge,
man.
huge, big one of those huge, big must-be's that everywhere. The Phantom of the Opera. There was actually a really good movie called with Paul Williams in the 70s that was kind of based on it. It was a rock opera. What was it called? It was another Phantom of the Opera type thing. I just popped into my head that was really good.
Phantom of the
Oh,
Paradise.
Phantom of Paradise, yeah,
Yeah.
with Paul Williams, that funny little
Right.
actor, songwriter that was around the place. Good movie too. Good soundtrack. Mm.
Yeah, yeah. That that looks like the fan. That's where they have those little bird masks on.
Yes, exactly. Which
Yeah.
is a thing for if you see Eyes Wide
That
Shut and
Yeah.
mm,
There you go. I'm glad you brought that up. That's exactly what I was thinking. Same thing.
same
Same
thing. Yep,
thing.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's like every Disney movie has to have someone with a big horned head on it. All
mhm.
the horned head, the V on the head. That's another impressive one. Everywhere. Oh, sorry to
Well,
interrupt.
oh no, also the V kind of, even if you think about the V in the forehead, because let's say you have the Harry Potter like Z, or the two sevens, even if you put a V on the forehead, that's really equaling the same idea, because 7 is 1 plus 4 is 5. A V, if you look at it in the V or the Roman numeral, it's going to be representing the 5. So it
Yeah,
really just
the
represents,
senses.
if you recognize symbology, you can speak a lot of different languages, and just simply put a single sign and a picture of, like, an outline of a face and a V on the forehead, and you can already know, this,
Yep.
a whole story. You can already
And
know kind
that's
of what's behind it.
another thing. I don't know if we ever did the whole thing, but you've seen it, and I've seen it. The
Uh-huh.
TV show
Yeah,
from
we
the
did.
80s. We did. That's
Well, I
really
think we talked
interesting.
about it, but we haven't gone all the way through it because there's a lot
No.
there. Go for it. What do you remember about that?
Well, oh no, I'm just saying, mate, well, you have to do a separate show just on
Oh
that.
yeah.
I would say just do V. Just the logo and the symbology, but interesting that the actor that plays Harry Potter, Daniel Radcliffe,
Hmm.
which is I don't know if that's his real surname, but he's in another movie that just came out, it's, 5 years old. He's got the horns on his head, like literally the same horns that you see in all these Disney movies, and there's always it seems to be the horned head, which is
Right.
also in the Marvel movies with the brother of Thor that plays the trickster. His headwear is exactly the same. It's a big V,
Right.
so it's all over. It's all over the place.
Oh
All
yeah,
over the
man.
place. Yeah.
Same old, same old.
Same old, same old.
Yeah. So next week we got the kind of you're thinking about if you think about numbers. So did you just move through because we're getting into compounds now. So you've gone through the 1 through 10. That's your basic, and then your next are going to be 11, etc., and then 21, blah blah blah. So then we're at 36 now. We're going to 37, which is going to be the ring of Zion or the ring of your mind. So we've gone through the present, which is the 336, which is the presented, which is right now. This is happening right now. And now
Hmm.
37 is going to be the 3 sevens, or the idea of the anticipation of rings. So ding, 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 kind of like I showed you on the slide earlier, or on the tonight's, you know, the
Yes,
Trump
yes,
the Trump Iran thing, where it's 7 7 7s in a row. You'll
yep,
start to see that. So they put out the story, then it starts to ring 7 sevens, then it'll move into the eights. Right then, so just know that once you see the story, once the story has been planted in the news cycle, then it's going to start to put out detailed stories, and those will be eight stories. They'll compound to eight, because the seven is just the one that's putting it into the mind of the receiver. Right.
yep. Fabulous.
The little line from Life During Wartime.
Yeah.
Mind of the
So next,
receiver. Yeah. So yeah, so that's what's going on, man. That's what I see
Mm.
with 36.
Well, I think you've just nailed it as usual. Top the
Hmm.
last one, and it's more relevant though right now. The fact that they
Hmm.
just coincidentally, as these shows are going on, they tend to turn up on the right day for the right news cycle to explain that news cycle. So it's
Right.
fantastic. So something about next week and 3 and 7,
Yeah.
37.
Yep.
There'll be something on the news to do with that for sure. This ring cycle, which is, we can
Right.
talk about, and that's another another show in itself. Just those movies and the
Uh-huh.
books, rather the books, from the Hobbit to the Silmarillion.
Oh yeah.
Uh, Another great conversation to be had in the near future for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've done it again, Dave. Done it again,
The
Dave.
Tom. Just so you know, the Tom Bombadil character is the Satan character in
Is
Lord
it?
of the Rings. Oh yeah, because he's kind of been there. He's the snake. He's the serpent, and he's pretending to be this kind of weirdo in the forest, kind of always
Yeah,
singing and dancing and carrying on.
like the Pan creature.
Yeah, and he also talks about being there before they were there. So it's another retelling of the Genesis 2:4. Where
and and
the Yahweh makes, yeah.
it says the same thing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It,
Hmm.
it always been there. I've always
Yeah.
been here.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
says the same thing. So it's really the same character. Tom Bombadil is it, and it is Tom Bombadil, and it and Tom Bombadil are the devil. Case dis,
Yeah. Bang your hammer down.
yeah,
Bang
yeah,
your hammer
bang
down.
together.
Yeah.
Judgment has been, yeah, made. They're
All
all
right.
the same character, man.
That's very interesting.
Yeah,
Fantastic. Another fabulous episode, Dave. 10 out of 10. 12 out of
excellent,
10. Sorry, 12
excellent,
out of 10.
excellent.
Yeah. And like last week's one, I thought was really, really good, and
Hmm.
other people do obviously.
Oh
But
yeah.
this week's one's a lot more relevant, so it outdoes the last week's one as per usual. So fantastic,
I'll
great
send the
stuff, man.
bot out then, huh? All right. Cheers,
Do that,
everybody.
dude.
Thanks for
Hey,
the
and
comments.
Dave,
Yeah.
thanks for another amazing show as per usual,
Oh, no, yeah.
as
No
per
worries.
usual.
No worries. We'll talk to
Yeah.
y'all next week. All right. Cheers.
Zip, zip.